Good morning, Pastor Ron Jetter, Immanuel Lutheran Church, Grandview, Washington, Monday the 23rd of November, Thanksgiving week. So I'm wearing my Thanksgiving colors this week. The color of the leaves turning, although, like I've said before, ours go from green to brown and they fall. That's it. None of that pretty fall colors, not the kind of trees we have. Nope. Maples. I miss maples. We had maples in Boise, Idaho. Boise is known as the city of the trees. Supposedly when the explorers came through, they looked at this valley, beautiful green valley of trees surrounded by mountains on one side and kind of inhospitable sagebrush desert on the other. And they said, the woods, les bois. And so the city of les bois then became Boise. Some people pronounce it as though there's a Z in it, and you can tell they don't really know anything about Boise when they call it Boise, especially like announcers. Well, yeah, Boise State football. Well, no, it's not Boise, it's Boise. I don't know why that's a thing, why it's a pet peeve of mine. It just is. You have yours too, right? What are your pet peeves? Go ahead, share them with me sometime. Send me an email, meetjettandsue@gmail.com. What are your pet peeves that really don't have anything to do with anything? They just are. I mentioned last time that there were 11 commandments, and that in order to get 10, you have to bunch up 2. Well, and like I said, we as Catholic, Lutheran, Episcopalian tend to bunch up the first 2 into one commandments because they really are. God says, you will have no other gods. And then says, don't make any other graven images. What would the other graven image be? It would be of another god. So it's the same commandment. But Baptists, Evangelicals, Methodists, they tend to then split those. And so then they're going to end up with 11 if they don't somehow combine the remaining 9. Well, there's 2 of them that end with covet. And they would say, well, they're both coveting. It's all the same thing. It's just extending the list of what you covet. And we would say there's distinctions. So for us, commandments 9 and 10 are the 2 separate commandments dealing with coveting. But we're not going to get there yet. That's a few days away because I just barely got through the first commandment. And that takes us all the way up to verse 7, where we get the second commandment. You shall not make wrongful use of the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not acquit anyone who misuses his name. Jesus says committing blasphemy against the Holy Spirit is unforgivable. Is this the same thing? What is Jesus referring to? What is this command? What is Moses trying to tell? What does Moses understand about this when Yahweh says, you shall not make wrong use of that name, Yahweh? What is the wrong use? And some people would say, well, that's when you're swearing and you're using God's name when you're swearing. Well, there's 2 kinds of swearing. There's cuss words, but there's also swearing as in swearing an oath. As God is my witness. That's an abuse of the second commandment. Don't bring God into it. God may indeed be your witness, but God may not be testifying on your side. You try to say, as God is my witness, so that other human beings will think you're not lying. And people say it while they are lying in order to suggest that they're not lying. We go into a courtroom, and what do? We place our hand on a Bible. Why? It's as if to say, I am pledging my faith in God on the testimony I'm about to give. Remember that movie, Oh God, where was it John Denver was in there way back when, and God had to testify to something, and God takes an oath in court and says, or they said, you promise to tell the truth? And he says, so help me. Cute stuff, yeah. But why do we say, I will swear on a stack of Bibles? Like the more Bibles you have, the more honest it makes you? No. Jesus says, let your yes be yes or your no be no. Don't swear by anything. Don't use God's name. That's wrongful use of God's name, bringing God into affairs between humans. When they say, will you tell the truth to the best of your ability? Yes, I will. Leave it at that. None of this so help me God stuff. Really, that's what the commandment is talking about. That's the wrongful use of God's name to bring God into our arguments. Because when we then tell a lie or give false testimony, we are doubly condemned. We have sinned doubly by telling the lie, and in fact, telling a lie isn't apparently a sin. It's not in the Ten Commandments. But when you tell a lie while using God's name to suggest that you're telling the truth, that basically says, I can lie and not even God will hold me accountable. And the commandments suggest otherwise. Let's go on to the third commandment then. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath to the Lord, or Shabbat in the Hebrew. You shall not do any work. Your son, your daughter, your male or female slave, your livestock, the alien residents in your town. Your 7-Elevens and your taverns will be closed. You're not going to run off the Safeway or the market. Keep your shekels in your pocket. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that is in them, but rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and consecrated it. We talked about this before. This is one of those commandments that was given while they're on the road these 3 months between, or 2.5 months, between the leaving of Egypt after the Passover, or as the Egyptians referred to it, the pass into, because the angel of death came into their homes. Between that day, that night, and now, God had already given them the Sabbath. So this is a restating of the commandment not to exploit yourself or anyone else, not to overwork your back, your family, those who work for you, and not to underwork your heart and your soul. Give God a day of rest. Now the Hebrew, I've talked about this before, the Hebrew way of looking at time, and it goes clear back to Genesis 1. Remember our study. It was evening and it was morning the first day. And it was evening and it was morning the second day. The evening was given as a gift, the time of rest, time with family, time of a meal. And then you get up and work. You earn that second day's rest, the second day's meal. But the first is a gift. And then after 6 days of that, you have a whole day that's a gift. A whole day of time with family, time for prayer and worship, time of gathering around the table. That's why the Sunday meal in Christian homes was so important. It was the time when everybody would catch up. And I bet you can tell stories about that from your own. We would have Sunday meals that were different than what we would have at other times. There are foods that we only had on Sundays. Fried chicken was one of those, in fact, because Mom didn't want to just slave over a hot fry pan with grease and every day of the week, but fried chicken about twice a month. Yeah, and the chicken all came from Grandpa and Grandma's farm, so I helped clean those chickens. We knew where chickens came from. I helped feed those chickens. I had gotten eggs and I had raised chickens out on grandparents' farm, and my grandma's sister and her husband, who had 500 milking head, and I don't know how many chickens they had, a couple hundred chickens. So that's how they made their money, selling milk and eggs. That's what farmers do. They make food, and they have some of that on their own tables. Those are good days, and chicken days were hard work. We'd go out on Saturday to the farm, and we'd gather all the chicken. My Aunt Vera was there, my mom's youngest sister, and my cousins. Vera had 4 kids, and my mom and dad had 3, so 7 of us running around. I was the youngest of the 7. Susan was the oldest, and so she was kind of in charge of us. She liked to boss us around, and she's a very, very nurturing, mothering person. But we'd have chicken and cut them up, fry them up a couple times a month. Fried chicken was the Sunday dinner. So Saturday working, and then Sunday enjoying the labor of our own hands. Sunday roast, Sunday meals, a way of keeping the Sabbath, honoring the 7th day. Yes, church is important, but that Sunday meal of the family, it's odd. God has to command us to do that. Don't you work yourself for everybody else. That's exploitation. That's not intended. Rest. Spend time working on relationships, working on relationship with God, working on relationship with neighbor, with family, with yourself. Be at peace. Recenter yourself once a week. Remember the Sabbath, the 3rd commandment. Tomorrow, number 4.